Hi guys, this is Brian again at the Regional Flood Control District. If you haven't seen already, we've been putting together several videos to go over the 2018 Las Vegas Valley Flood Control Master Plan update. This is another one of those videos, and in this video I want to talk all about the maps and exhibits that were created during the MPU. Some of these maps may already be familiar to you, but other maps have been changed or reformatted or updated, so I want to take some time to go over those changes. There are a few different MPU maps that we refer to a lot to get information about the regional flood control facilities or the hydrologic analysis that was done to determine flow rates impacting those facilities. And those maps are available in several different formats. For example, we have some limited hard copy versions of the maps, like these facility maps that are printed in this binder that we refer to as Volume 2. So those are available. We have these same maps available in PDF format electronically, and those are on our website. Also on our website, we have a tool called FloodView Advanced, and that's a mapping application that lets you go onto our website and you can zoom around to different areas in Las Vegas and turn layers on and off so you can view that information from the MPU dynamically and print maps. So there's several different types of maps, several different formats, and so this video will go over those maps, and then at the end you'll have a better feel for what's available. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen, and let me show you where to go to get some of these maps that I was talking about. On my screen is shown what it would look like if you downloaded all of the electronic data and information from our website from the MPU. This is what you would get. You'll see everything's organized into subfolders, and the second folder down, called Appendices, that's where we keep all of the maps. So if you go into that folder, you'll see the first three, Appendix A, B, and C, are all different kinds of maps. The first maps in Appendix A are called the G maps, and that stands for general maps. These are very basic, simple reference maps. There's only two of them. So the first one is a land ownership map, and this is basically a reference map that shows all of the land ownership in the study area and the underlying jurisdictions. So that's available. We also have another map called Environmentally Sensitive Areas, and this is showing those critical environmental areas. So that's here for reference as well, and we update that with every MPU. But not a lot has changed between this map and what was provided in previous MPUs. Let me go back out. I'll skip over W maps for just a second and go into the F maps in Appendix C. So if we come into Appendix C and we open this up, this probably is very familiar to a lot of you that have worked with the district in the past. These are our facility maps. This is where we show detailed facility inventory tables, as well as maps showing the location of all the regional flood control facilities across the valley. And if you look, here's a sheet index, and this shows the different map numbers and what's covered in each of those maps. On the left, in the Adobe PDF application, you can see these by page, or you can go down and they're grouped into some bookmarks to help you navigate around a little bit. So for example, if we come in here and we go to map F34, first thing you'll see is the inventory table, and for each facility we have a detailed listing of the ID mile, a description of whether that's existing or proposed, what type of facility it is, the geometry associated with that, lengths, flow rates, slopes, the HEC1 model information. So really pertinent information about each of those regional flood control facilities. So that's the table. And then on the next page is the corresponding map that shows all those facilities geographically. So we could zoom in here and we can see the different ID miles of each facility. We can check the table to understand what type of facility that is, and vice versa. Also to note, the way these maps are set up, you can refer to the legend, but the blue facilities show existing facilities, red show proposed facilities, and green is what we call Category B proposed facility, and that generally means that we expect those to be built with maybe developer funds, or that might be an indication that there's already some kind of flood control facility there, so that these are kind of lower priority improvements or things that might be needed later on. But we basically haven't programmed any of the district funding for now to go towards those Category B facilities. So they're sort of a lesser priority is one way to think of it. In addition to the color scheme, you'll see in the legend that we also display the different linear facilities with different line work to help you understand what type of facility it is. So right here it shows a solid line is for storm drains, double lines are used for line channels, We use double lines with some dashes for unlined channels and other things as you can see here on the legend. So if I'm out here on the map and I'm looking, I can see that these are existing storm drains up here. We have channel facilities proposed. And the last thing maybe to note about the symbology is we have this other category down here at the bottom of the legend called remove and replace facilities. And these are facilities where we already have some kind of existing flood control facility in the ground, but it's been determined to be maybe undersized or inadequate, or it needs some kind of expansion or improvement. And so we would call those remove and replace or parallel facilities. And that means that in the MPU, it's been determined that at some point we'll either replace that facility, or maybe we'll add another facility parallel to that to increase the capacity or make sure that it functions as it needs to. So if you look out here, these are the types of lines you'll see where they're dashed red and blue. So it's an existing facility, but it has also a proposed expansion or improvement. So just something to be aware of. But that's an overview of our FMAPs. Again, not a lot has changed between this version of the FMAPs and what was provided in previous MPUs. So those are available. They're a great reference. You can get all of them in PDF format, or we do have some of those printed in our Volume 2 binder, as I mentioned before. So let's go back to the appendix folder, and we'll go up to Appendix B, which is where we keep the W maps. Now, W maps is a new version of what we used to call H maps or hydrologic maps. So these are the maps that show all of the hydrologic information, things like subbasins, soils, flow directions, flow rates. All of that information is available on these maps. And we've changed these a little bit, reformatted them. And so one of the changes is these are now much bigger. They're 24 by 36. And we've zoomed out to show these watershed maps at the watershed level. They used to be, the H maps were much smaller, 11 by 17, and they were fixed to a certain index that matched the F maps. Well, now we've gone out to a watershed level, and that lets you basically see all of the subbasins in the watershed. You can trace the flow patterns from subbasin to subbasin without worrying about which sheet index you're on and things like that. But the content in the map itself is very similar. So let's go through some of this, and I'll show you how to use them. One thing to note before I open a map, there is a file in here called instructions. And so that's just something to be aware of. If you open this, this gives some instructions on how to use these maps. There's a thing called the model tree that lets you view some of the attributes of the different layers. There's over here we have a layer tool, and this lets you turn on and off layers in the PDF. There's also some instructions over here about how to print these maps and how to work with them. And so this is available. I'll demonstrate all of this momentarily, but just be aware these instructions are there in the folder, and that's a good reference to use if you haven't opened these maps before. So let's go ahead and look at one. So I'll open up the central watershed. This is map figure W5. And so you'll see when I open it, it's zoomed out to the central watershed. Every subbasin is shown in the entire watershed. And let me just zoom in a little closer to an area. So you'll see here we show things like the subbasin's name, the flow arrows, the regional flood control facility line work is on here, street labels. You'll notice we also have land use color scheme in the back. We have the soil boundaries and the soil boundary layers. Those soil map units are labeled on here. So you get a lot of different information, and this is basically kind of the format when you first open it up. So let me zoom out back to kind of the whole page and come over here to the left. So some of the new functionality is available in what we call dynamic PDFs. These are dynamic in that they let you turn layers on and off. So if you come down to this icon here, this is the layers tool. You can click on this, and what it will do is it shows a list here on the left of all of the different layers that are shown in the map. And so this gives you the ability to turn on and off different layers that are shown in the PDF. So for example, if I just start near the bottom and I start turning things off, like the background, I can turn that off. That turns off the legend and the gray in the back. The aerials, I can turn on and off the aerials. Those soil layers can be turned on and off, and so forth. I mean, I can keep going. Subbasins, watersheds, all the way until basically there's not much left on here other than some subbasin labels and street names. So you have control over what's displayed. Notice at the top, if you've turned a lot of things off, you can go back and say reset to initial visibility. That'll get us back where we started. One other thing to note with these layers and the labels and how to turn them on and off is all of these bottom layers, these are the actual layers and features themselves. If you're interested in maybe keeping the layer on but just turning the labels off, then that's used separately in this subfolder called labels. So you can expand this, and this will turn on and off just the labels, but it will leave the feature on. So for example, here's the subbasin label on the screen, LC11-C. So maybe I want the subbasin boundary to be on, but not the label. So I could come in here under labels and go down to subbasin and turn that off, and you'll see that that's gone now. Same thing with street labels. Those are in here. I can turn off those street labels. And maybe I want to see the ID miles. Those are turned off by default, but I could come in and say, show me all of the ID miles. Now there's a lot of those, so that's why they're turned off by default, but maybe you're interested in seeing those, so you can turn those on and off. The other thing to be aware of in these maps, besides the layers, we have what's called this model tree. And so under model tree, if you go to the category here that says W5, that's the name of the figure, you can expand that, and you'll see that there's also data and information embedded directly into the map about the facilities and other layers in the map. So if I expand this FCF ARCs, these are our regional flood control facilities. And if you were interested in information about a certain facility, like in this case LVPK 0000, you can click on that, and the PDF itself will have the information similar to what's in the inventory table. So it shows you things like the description of the facilities and the links and other information. So the last thing I want to do is take a few minutes and talk about how to print these maps. Obviously, the best thing is these are set up as 24 by 36 maps. So if you have a large scale plotter, you can print these at scale, 24 by 36 page size, and that will print the entire map, show you the entire watershed. It'll include the legend, and you'll get all of the information on a single large map. Sometimes though, you might need to print a smaller area or a subsection, something zoomed in, and so there's a couple ways to do that. So one way to do that, if you come here, you basically go into your PDF, and let's just zoom in to a particular area. And let's say you have a project here or a reason that you're interested in printing this smaller location. So you just zoom in, and then basically whatever you're looking at, when you hit the print icon, there's an option here under more options, and it just says to print the current view. So you can select that, say print the current view. You can fit that to a page size if you want, or use the actual size. There's different options with the page, but that will basically give you the ability to print only what's in your current view. So that's one way to do it. Another option, the other way to do this is if you were, let's say you're up here and you're interested in printing this area, under the edit menu, there's a tool called take a snapshot. So if I click on that, that gives me this little tool, and I'm basically able to draw an outline of the area I'm interested in printing. And you'll see once I've done that, it kind of makes the image. I go back here to this print icon, and when I open up that menu now, under more options, instead of current view, it says selected graphic. And so that basically takes a picture of that subset or that smaller area, and basically that's what gets printed now on your map. So you can use the current view, you can use that snapshot tool, and that's a way to print some smaller maps that might be similar in size to what was previously shown on the H maps. Now that's a little bit rough. It doesn't give you the legend, so you might have to do that and then use some of the tools in Adobe to add a legend or to do some other markups. But it is a workaround and one way to use these maps if you're interested in smaller maps. Now, having said that, if you're interested in printing these smaller maps, there's a better way to do that than by using these PDF tools. I just wanted to show you this functionality. But if you want those smaller maps, there's a better way to do that, and that's by using the tool that's on our website. So let me actually open that up for just a second. If we go to our website, on the left-hand side on our menu, if you go down, there's a tool called FloodView Advanced. If you click on that, that takes you to another page where you can launch this tool. And this brings up a mapping application that lets you zoom around, turn layers on and off, similar to the PDFs. But this also has a print tool up here, and you're able to click on this print tool, and you can set up different sizes and add titles, and you're able to print this map as well. Now we have a separate video entirely dedicated to the FloodView map tool, so I won't get into any more detail in this video, and I recommend you check that out, learn how to use that tool, how to print those maps, because that's going to be a great option if you're interested in those smaller 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17 maps that you might want to put with a report or a submittal. So that really wraps up what I wanted to talk about. We've gone through the W maps, we talked about the G maps and the F maps. the different formats, the different ways that those are available and how you can get those. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or anyone here at the district. We'll be happy to help you with some of these new tools. We hope you like these maps. We're open to feedback if you want to send anything in terms of what you're looking for or something that's not there. Other than that, check out that other video and make sure you learn how to use our online tool. It works really well. Thanks.